Chapter 4. Chryssa, 17 Vicos, 569 AF. I loved my mother. She was beautiful, as I've said before, glorious and in love, filled with passion, and she brought joy and laughter with her wherever she went. There was a presence to her, and a kindness that could make anyone feel special just by being near her. Adelaide Rose was all that was lovely in the world, and her death had created a hole in my heart, which was never truly filled by Janice. I still loved my mother, but in the years that came after her death, I learned to hate her too. It began the day my father woke from his state of despair and staggered, with surprising strength, from my mother's grave back into the house. His voice was rough and rasping from disuse as he called for a bath, and Brannon and I rushed to fill the heavy tub in the great room with heated water, our backs and shoulders aching under the strain of the heavy buckets. Our legs and arms trembled with effort and apprehension as we toiled, the air feeling close and heavy. I saw the rage build on Father's face and was helpless to stop it. And then he struck me. At first, I was too stunned to even feel the blow. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet, my buckets tumbling from my hands to spill water across the floor. Wide-eyed, I stared up at him, pain blooming across the side of my face, tears sparkling in my vision until they all but blinded me. His face was contorted, his hands clenched into fists at his side as a muscle ticked in his jaw. I gulped in fear and retreated another step away from him. "It's your fault she's dead," he whispered, the words grating and harsh in the abrupt silence. "Worthless bitch, you killed her. You killed my Adelaide." My breath caught, my heart lurching with grief. "Father, no, Shut up!" The second blow knocked me to the floor and flooded my mouth with the taste of blood. Tears streamed down my cheeks, though I scarcely noticed. Panic, fear, survival, all of these were rushing through me, and all I could think of was that I needed to run, to hide until his rage faded. Then I lifted my head and saw Brannon. He stood frozen in the doorway, the buckets dangling uselessly from his hands. In the instant that our eyes met, I felt his thoughts as my own, brilliant red, filled with fear and fury. "I'll kill him." No. Fear for myself vanished before the hot certainty of his thoughts, and I looked away to where Lanya cowered in the doorway of our room, her face white as the others peered around her. Protect them. It happened in mere moments, this understanding between us, his guilt and relief and impotent fury flooding him as he gave in to my will. His jaw clenched, his eyes still uncertain, but he set down the buckets and went to our room, pushing Lanya and the others inside. His eyes met mine in one last, conscience-stricken glance before he closed the door and locked it, leaving me alone with Malachi. I took a deep breath and stood. The anger emanating from Father was all but a living thing, lashing out, threatening to cripple me. I do not remember all of the names he called me, nor the number of times he swung, though he mostly missed, his eyes too unfocused to see me clearly. Suffice it to say that he blamed everyone for my mother's death, for taking his Astar away from him. He blamed Reese, of course, and the twins, for making her too weak to withstand my brother's birthing. He blamed Janice for not doing enough, and the crone for arriving too late. He blamed Lanya for resembling her, and Brannon for possessing her smile. He even blamed the gods, and cursed the vision that had made her seek her own death. But most of all, he blamed me. It had been my hands that had been covered in her blood when he had entered her room. My mere presence had been a curse, dooming her. He claimed that I had let her die to save my brother, shrieked in a broken voice that he would never forgive me. His star was dead, and his world was darker for it. And then, abruptly, it was over. My father sagged as the emotions drained from him. He crumpled in upon himself, weak and weary, full of remorse and piteous tears. It frightened me more than his rage. In the end, I resorted to treating him as Janice had, as if he were a small child in the aftermath of a temper. I bathed him, scrubbing months of filth from his skin as the water turned black from it. I trimmed his hair and shaved his beard and dressed him in clean clothes, throwing his soiled garments in the fireplace to burn. He wept through it all. At last, I led him to his bed, and he sighed as he fell asleep, whispering my mother's name like a prayer. I limped from his room to ours, wearily tapping on the door. "Brannon, it's me." He jerked the door open, his eyes reflecting all the pain that lurked somewhere deep inside of me, buried beneath the exhaustion. He reached out to touch the tender bruises on my cheek. I flinched. "I'm fine, Brannon." His eyes were dark, direct. "No, you're not." "I'm just tired." My bones were made of fragile glass. If I admitted how afraid I was, I would simply shatter. "I need to sleep." He stepped aside. Lanya stared at me from the chair in the corner, her face tight with worry. The twins sprawled across the bed with Reese, their limbs tangling with each other as they slept. "Chrissa?" Lanya whispered, her voice trembling with unasked questions. "I'm fine." I curled onto my pallet on the floor, dragging my blanket around me, and closed my eyes. But it was a long time before sleep finally claimed me, and my dreams, when they came, were full of blood and screams.